G'day guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2009, directed by J.K. Yoon, and this film is called Haeundae. And the story to Haeundae is as follows. During the busy summer months, the beach resort of Haeundae is packed with up to 1 million tourists. On one such day, a marine geologist detects some activity that he believes will bring a massive tidal wave to the shores of Korea. Although his fears are officially denied by the Disaster Prevention Agency, he races to the city convinced that it is about to be hit by a mega tsunami. Soon his worst fears become true as the city is thrown into a storm of death and destruction. So the movie takes place at this beachside sort of city named Haeundae. Haeundae is a tourist destination that is very popular and it generates a lot of income. So at the start of the movie you see this tsunami that hits Sri Lanka and India and also China. Now obviously we know about that massive tsunami that hit that part of Asia. It was devastating. So this movie plays off that. So after you get an insight into the devastation of these affected areas, then it takes place in Korea. Now this marine geologist has evidence to suggest that maybe an even bigger tsunami is going to hit Korea, in particular Haeundae. So he wants the place evacuated or at least on standby, but the Disaster Prevention Agency thinks it's all paranoia, that if they evacuate the city and it turns out to be a false alarm, they're going to lose a lot of money. So basically it's money over precaution. So they don't believe anything bad's going to happen, but the marine geologist knows that something bad is just around the corner. So he's trying to convince them with more and more evidence, but by the time the Disaster Prevention Agency realise that he might be onto something, it's already too late, and this mega tsunami is threatening to hit. So whether or not it hits and who survives and who doesn't, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Haeundae. I was really disappointed with this film. I was expecting so much more than what I got. Now the problem with it is that it doesn't feel so much like a South Korean film. It feels like a director has seen films like 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, The Perfect Storm, all those mega budget Hollywood films, and he's thought to himself, yeah, I'm just going to copy off those ideas and I'm just going to make it a South Korean film so no one's going to notice. But it is obvious that this guy is a fan of the blockbusters, and it's obvious that this guy is a lazy director. Now, I know that is very harsh to say, but it's an overwhelming feeling that I have. Now, there are so many things that give evidence to this in the fact that it's a very melodramatic film. It feels like it's lazy in its progression of the characters because at the end of the film, you get so many death speeches. You know, when someone's facing their inevitable demise, they'll stop to give this really theatrical sort of death speech, and then conveniently after they mutter their last words, then they'll be wiped out. That's something you get so much with Hollywood, and that's exactly what you get in this film, and it happens more than once, and it gets very frustrating, and you feel to yourself, oh my god, it's happening again. I'm not feeling sorry for them. What I am is annoyed at the director for doing such a thing. I thought it was not really respecting the audience as much as a lot of other South Korean movies do, and it just, as I said, it became a huge disappointment, and it's a movie that has so many more flaws than it has positives. Now, to start off with, I will say that it does come with positives. The cinematography is very good. Haeundae is a very good looking city. It's a beautiful sort of environment, and I thought it captured the happy-go lifestyle of these residents. Now, at the start of the movie, there is a lot of character development. It takes 80 minutes before the action actually happens, and so I thought the characters were likable to some degree, but they were very forced. It felt like the director was trying too hard to portray colourful characters, in the fact that it doesn't, it basically loses its realism and it comes across as caricature because it's just so quirky, it's so cheesy, it's so slapstick sort of comedy that you feel to yourself that I'm watching a comedy. I'm not watching a film that's trying to build up sympathy for an inevitable sort of destruction that's going to come later in the film. So it's a movie of two halves. On one half, you've got a comedy that doesn't know what it wants to be. It's trying to build characters, but it just stays very, very flat. So 80 minutes go by and it's very tedious. And I know exactly what the director was trying to do, but it doesn't work because the characters were just so forced. The script was ordinary, and you just don't get enough connection to these characters. You don't care what's happening in the first 80 minutes. There's no real, you're not enthralled, you're not glued to the screen, you're just waiting for the bad thing to happen so it can wipe everybody out, and at least that way it would have had a saving grace. It would have made the wait worth it if the actual disaster scenes were well done. Unfortunately, although the disaster scenes weren't the worst that I've ever seen, it definitely wasn't worth the wait. Now, the CGI is there, and unfortunately, as is the case with a lot of mega budget movies, especially from Hollywood, the CGI takes effect and it is apparent that it is very CGI. In some movies, or some parts of the movie, it does look okay, but other parts it looks pretty ordinary, and that really got to me also. I think it takes a lot of realism out of it, and that's basically what the film is. It's just an exaggerated, cheesy film that tries to pass itself off as a mega budget movie in order to get the audience to want to go and watch it, but all you get is a movie that you feel a little bit ripped off by, because the payoff to the long wait, it feels like it wasn't worth it. It feels like you've got a firework that promises the massive explosion, but it just fizzes out. So that's the best way I can sum up Hyundai. It's an absolute fizzer. Now, uh, the the action scenes, they were very inconsistent. There were some moments where I was thinking, well, if this part of the city was destroyed this much, why wasn't the other part of the city destroyed? It feels like the director has forgotten what is happening. It feels like he's lost control. And as I said, the melodrama, when you've got these characters who are facing their death, conveniently the storm stops for a few minutes just so they can deliver their lines, and then they're taken out. So it's just a really lazy way at gaining the sympathy from the audience. They're force feeding the emotion to you, and they're not letting you make your own mind up about whether you want to be sympathetic towards these people. So that's something that is very apparent in a lot of South Korean films, and that's the biggest problem with South Korea, is that they force feed the emotion a little bit too much. But I thought that this one force feeds it a lot more than they usually do. So it is a movie very much like 2012, which is basically style over substance. It is, as I said, mega budget, and that's going to get a lot of people in to go and want to watch it. But as far as I'm concerned, as I said, it's all CGI. Disaster movies such as The Impossible, which was with Jude Law, I believe. I like the way that tsunami looked, because it was practically done. It was very smartly done, and it didn't look as fake as it looks in this movie. So when you've got a very fake looking movie, it takes the realism out of it, and once again, without realism, you don't really have too many scares. So overall, for Hyundai, I was really disappointed. I'm only going to give it 1.5 stars. As far as South Korean cinema is concerned, this is definitely at the lowest sort of end of the food chain, and it's definitely not going to come recommended. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.